Hello, Tim. Welcome to Britain.
Thank you again.
Is it possible a young man with skills, passion, and creativity to join the Hollywood industry nowadays?
The answer to that would be yes, it's certainly possible, but it takes a commitment first, I think, to live in the area. The Hollywood community prefers to hire people who are committed to being in the area and not transient. So if you can prove to people that you are in the area permanently, then you can start trying to break into the business. Otherwise, you'll get an internship maybe, but you won't be able to actually get a job because there's plenty of competition, other people who are committed to that business and committed to to living in the area, and the competition is really fierce for that type of work. So you definitely want to make sure to let people know that you were living full time in Los Angeles.
This sounds great.
Yeah. Do
they expect from new employees specific criteria in Hollywood?
Well, I would say so. The number one thing probably is just to make sure that you really know Pro Tools really well, because it's the de facto standard in Hollywood, and as you can imagine, all the people who are working in the business on a regular basis every day are using Pro Tools every day and know it really, really well. So you really want to know that program inside and out, and that's where you start. Anymore, even with an internship, I don't think even anybody would give. Very few people that I know would give an internship to someone who didn't know Pro Tools already. So yeah, that's number one.
Work experience, let's say more than 5 years or something, is it an issue?
It's not as important, but the more experience you have that you can demonstrate, the better.
You have experience on sound design over 20 years in a variety kind of fields, commercials, and music videos.
Yes.
So, in your opinion, which is the most challenging kind of film for sound design? Horror, science fiction, comedy, action, or social?
Just for film?
Yes.
The most challenging type of film?
Yes.
That's really hard to say because some people, their personality is such that it's very easy for them to do a certain genre. So let's say I like horror movies. I love to do horror, but there's a lot of work to do horror movies because as a sound designer, you have to do a lot of extra work that's not reality based. And so, but I like it, and it's easy for me to do. So I say, for horror movies, for me, it's very easy to do. I understand it. I don't have to work very hard. So I feel it here, I get it done, right? But maybe a romantic comedy is something that I don't really enjoy. So maybe I find it difficult to do because I just don't really like to do it. So I'm not saying that I don't like romantic comedies, but I am saying that that if you like a certain genre yourself, or you understand it naturally, then those would be the things that are easy for you, and the things that are going to be difficult for you are the things that don't come naturally. So over 20 years, you build up a repertoire of different types of films so that you don't have a weakness, right? So if I'm no good at horror movies, then I want to do some horror movies so I can get better at it and understand it better. Or if I don't like science fiction or I'm not very good at it, I want to do more of those so that I get better at my weaknesses. It's easy to do the strengths, right? But if you really want to be able to work in the industry for a long period of time, you have to be able to do everything and understand it. So if there are weaknesses you see in yourself, attack the weaknesses first, because the other stuff comes easy. That's easy stuff. If you spend too much time there and someone asks you to do this over here, you won't know how to do it. you'll have to reinvent yourself. So you want to attack those things that you don't do well early in your career, so that later you have a better understanding of how to do the things that you're not naturally good at.
These are great tips. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So technical stuff now. What kind of audio equipment do you use generally in Hollywood? Is it Pro Tools, the standard DAW system for audio
Pro
post-production?
Tools is totally the standard editorial system. Now, lots of people use different software for design to create new and fresh audio. There are synthesizers, both virtual and brick and mortar type synthesizers. There are still synclaviers floating around. There's a lot of new plug-in manufacturers that have created some amazing plugins that people use for sound design. So every year the palette gets wider and wider of tools that are available for sound design. But Pro Tools is the center, typically, for most people. They're using Pro Tools and plugins that work inside Pro Tools. SoundMiner is another arena that we work in. It's a database program, but you can use VST plugins inside the database. So we use SoundMiner to search for the sounds that we're looking for, and then use the VST-based plugins inside SoundMiner to manipulate them before we go to Pro Tools. And there are many different environments like that. Mach 5 is another one, Mark of Unicorn, and there are many others. Many others.
Another question. What kind of resolution do you use? 24 bits, 192 kilohertz?
Good question. What we use is typically, for the most part, dictated by the mix stages, because the mix stages have consoles that work in a certain format, and if the console is not capable of handling anything more than 24-bit 48K or 24-bit 96K, then we can't go any higher of a resolution than that. When we're recording new material, fresh audio, we'll record at the highest sample rate possible, usually at either 192 or 96, depending on how many tracks we need. In our portable recorders, if we go to 192, we get fewer tracks or less recording time. So a lot of times we'll go 24-bit 96 so that we get more track count and we get a longer, we get more
quality.
It's not necessarily the best, but it's good enough, because typically most of our libraries currently are either at 96K, but they get converted over to 48 to work with the mix stages a lot of times, unfortunately. So 96 is not, still 48 is the standard, 24-bit 48, but we do edit at higher sample rates and when we can.
When you work in a film, do you have separate teams that they work with different tracks in different Pro Tools projects, and then you apply them in one final project?
Mm-hmm.
No,
we have multiple machines typically. So sometimes we'll use as many as 6, 8 machines, all slaved together, maybe more.
So you're working at the same time to the same project in Pro Tools?
Well, let's say that we've got sound effects and sound design. So sometimes the reality-based sound effects, like the background sound, atmospheres, will be separate stuff.
And the ADR.
And you got the ADR, you've got dialogue, you've got multiple versions of everything, you've got temp stems from mixes that happen along the way that get carried forward. Many, many, many elements.
So how can you manage to work at the same time in the same project with different tracks without
getting confused?
Yeah.
Well, we keep them in separate projects. They're separate projects.
So you work in separate projects, and then?
Well, all different people. All different people. The ADR, that's one person.
In different Pro Tools projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And then we put them together.
Okay.
Yeah. And based on how the mixer on the mix stage wants it laid out on the console. So we'll take the dialogue and the ADR and put that on one machine. And then we'll take the sound design, which is usually super wide, that goes on its own machine, just by itself. Then we'll go to machine 3 and we'll put the music. Music is like this. Music's got to have its own machine, sometimes two machines. So
do you work with the music composers? Do you work at the same time?
Yes, simultaneously. So sometimes we can get temp score from. You should check and make sure it's still running.
Yeah, it's running.
Okay, good. Sometimes we can get temp score, which will be basically what the composer does in his studio before they record the orchestra. But it's the same tonality, same pitches. So as sound designers, we kind of know what to do, like how the music is going to play, and so then we design our sound accordingly. But most of the time, we don't. Most of the time, everybody goes to the mix stage, never hearing what the other one is doing. And so we have to make massive adjustments in the sound design on the mix stage.
Another question that I'd like to ask you is, if you have I think that there are a lot of sounds that have to be at the same time, a lot of tracks. Did you export to a stereo track and then import it to other projects with less tracks or something like that?
I see. You mean if we don't have enough machines?
I mean, as a plan, do you think, okay, I want footsteps for let's say, have in my mind the footsteps of the orcs in the Lord of the Rings, like this, and you don't record you have the opportunity to record the whole stadium, do this, and make some
put them together, put pieces together
to create a huge sound.
Yes.
Did you export to stereo this sound?
Oh, I see. Well, it depends. Sometimes the sound designer will do that. If we create a sound and it consists of a lot of elements, but we don't want all of those elements all the time. We just want the result. There's a process where we go through called pre-dubbing. And maybe it's called something different here in the UK. I don't know, but we call it pre-dubbing. And basically what that means is we take all the elements and we pre-mix them in 5.1 environment. So we'll take all the elements and maybe we split them a little bit. So we've got, let's say for the footstep, like a Godzilla's footstep, we have like an explosion element. So there's one 5.1 mix. And then we have a reality element where you can hear it hit the street. That's another 5.1 element. And maybe we have a whoosh for his leg, right? So the whoosh will be another 5.1 element, right? All coming from the original editorial session. So that gets mixed down to these three elements. 5.1, 5.1, 5.1, right? And then those elements, those 5. All the elements go away. And these three things are given to the mixer to mix. And we do that for everything, right? Everything.